The 5-Second War by Jest. Celestia yawned and stretched out on her throne, smacking her lips as she eyed the sun drawing low on the horizon. The day had been long, not terribly eventful, and altogether a bit of a chore, though that wasn't enough to get her down. Glancing back to the mostly empty room, she looked down at her assistant Quill, who was poring over the schedule with a worried look. "Is something wrong?" Celestia inquired. The pony's back straightened, and he hastily shook his head. "It's nothing, Your Highness. I just realized the next individual has a peculiar name." "Peculiar how?" Celestia questioned. "Well, it's... You know what? I'll just read it to you." The Earth Pony cleared his throat. "Celestia, I'm going to slap your ugly face," with dashes between each word. "That is..." Celestia frowned, temporarily at a loss for words. "Am I the butt of some joke I haven't heard about?" "Not that I'm aware. They filled out all the proper paperwork," Quill replied. The Alicorn frowned, her gaze lingering on the distant door which separated the throne room from the waiting area. "I suppose we should send them in then," she half-heartedly declared. "I suppose so," agreed Quill. Celestia cleared her throat and motioned towards the guard who stood near the entrance. "We are ready for the next individual," Celestia called. The golden armoured pony bowed briefly before tugging open the door with his magic. A second later, a tall unicorn mare strode into the room, her head held high as if she had just accomplished something great. Her long seafoam green mane hung in disorganized mess around her black furred shoulders. Piercing jade eyes immediately landed on Celestia, where they remained as the mare strode into the room. Celestia immediately found herself struck by the strange pony, and could feel herself leaning subtly to the side, taking a peek at her cutie mark, which was an orb of green fire, giving absolutely no hint as to what the mare's intent might have been, save for maybe pyromania. The Alicorn cleared her throat. "Greetings! What may I help you with today?" Celestia began. "Before I get to the meat of my reason for being here today, may I please approach the throne?" asked the mare, who bowed low. Celestia frowned, noting that although the pony bowed, she still seemed to carry the same cocky air about her that she'd walked in with, rendering the act which should have been a sign of respect into an almost sarcastic statement that Celestia found irritating. The Alicorn briefly considered the pony's question before shrugging and motioning forward. She was immortal, nearly indestructible, and had enough magic to vaporize the poor pony with a thought, so what was the harm? "You may," Celestia offered. Though she noted the disapproving look on her court assistant's face, Celestia ignored the expression for now. Instead, she watched as the strange green and black pony trotted up to the base of the throne, where she stretched her legs and did a few mock air punches with her right forehoof. "What are you doing?" Celestia asked. "Getting ready," replied the pony. Celestia sighed and planted a hoof against her forehead. "Please do not do anything stupid." "Au contraire, this is quite brilliant," declared the pony before she leaped up at the Alicorn, hoof cocked and ready. So surprised by the burst of speed that Celestia hardly even had a chance to react before she felt the pony's hoof hit her cheek. Rather than follow this attack up with another strike, the mare quickly trotted back down to the base of the throne, where she lay on the ground, forehoofs stretched before her and back legs extended as far as possible. For some reason, the two throne guards took the time to slap themselves at that exact moment. "I surrender," she declared. The guards looked up to Princess Celestia, who was rubbing her cheek and looking down on the mane, for while she was reeling from the blow, the pony had somehow transformed into a much different creature. Well, not that much had changed, but she did have holes in her legs. Her fur was now a hard exoskeleton, and on the creature's back were a pair of insectoid wings. Her horn was also weirdly jagged, and she no longer had a cutie mark, but those differences were small compared to the others. Celestia opened her mouth to speak, only to stop herself. "Why?" asked the alicorn. "I am Queen Chrysalis of the Changeling, and I am surrendering to you after this act of war in order to invoke our defeated nation's clause," replied the creature. "Okay, that is a whole lot to unpack, but why hit me? You could have simply declared war and then surrendered," Celestia inquired. "'Cause this is way funnier," Chrysalis replied with a shrug. Quick-Quill groaned. "Shall I reschedule the rest of your evening?" Celestia nodded. "Send Raven to do it. I have a feeling I'll need you soon enough." The Earth Pony nodded before quickly scampering out of the throne room, leaving Celestia to stare down at the changeling with a mixture of confusion as well as curiosity. "How do I really know you are the leader of your people?" Celestia began. "Because I have this," Chrysalis declared before her head was briefly covered in fire, revealing a black crown with small green pearls mounted atop each of its 6 points. "Is that supposed to mean something to me?" Celestia deadpanned. "This is the crown of the changelings, and the only undisputed leader of our species can wear it," Chrysalis replied. "If that is not enough to convince you of my rulership, then I can summon some of my subjects." "That would be excellent, thank you," Celestia replied. "Burrow Watch, Shattered Fang, reveal yourselves," Chrysalis declared. The 2 royal guards, standing below Celestia's throne, nodded before being covered in green fire. Where once a pair of noble unicorn stallions stood, there were now changelings, who bowed not to Celestia, but to Chrysalis. "Solar glare, sunspot, what have you done to my guards?" Celestia asked, rising from her throne in anger. "Oh, nothing," Chrysalis replied, standing up and stretching her legs. "Those 2 have been gainfully employed by your guard for 2 decades at this point." "That doesn't sound legal," Celestia murmured. "Subsection 2 of the Brandon Buck Constitution allows the giving of a false name if the individual fears that their real name may lead to their death," Chrysalis replied. "Brandon Buck? Isn't that an old unicorn city?" Celestia inquired. "Indeed it is, and after it was absorbed by New Eucornia, which then became Canterlot, its laws became national laws," Chrysalis explained. Quick-Quill emerged from the other room only to stop. "Is everyone okay in here?" "Yes, just fine, I think," Celestia muttered, sitting back down. "I don't intend on harming anyone else if that's what you're thinking," Chrysalis exclaimed. Celestia sighed. "Could you repeat what you just said to Quick-Quill here?" Chrysalis nodded and did just that. The Earth Pony assistant rubbed his chin briefly before nodding. "Yes, that is perfectly legal, though shouldn't we get back to the more important topic?" "Like my unconditional surrender and your obligation to house as well as feed all 400,000 of my citizens," Chrysalis declared. Celestia's jaw hung open and she had to shake her head in order to dismiss the stupor which had fallen over her. "Okay, that part cannot be legal. There is no way we are obligated to do all that," Celestia exclaimed, glancing expectantly at Quick-Quill, who smirked. "This time you are wrong, Chrysalis. Only combatants are owed such accommodations." "Every single citizen has been trained as a soldier and was told to hit themselves at the moment between my assault and surrender, thus leaving them injured during the conflict," Chrysalis countered. "That explains the slapping," Celestia murmured, only to glance back at her assistant. "That counts," he muttered. "Injuries don't need to be sustained in battle, or even from the enemy." "Blast it all," Celestia muttered, the alicorn sinking further into her chair, only to perk up. "Wait, I can pardon you of all crimes, thus nullifying your act of war." "If I were an equestrian citizen," Chrysalis countered. Celestia glanced hopefully to her assistant, who shook his head. "Really? Come on!" Celestia groused. "I'm afraid she's right, Princess," Quick-Quill exclaimed. But I hold supreme executive authority. Can't I just erase those laws? Celestia inquired. During and immediately after an act of war, the princess cannot enact or rescind any measures made before the war for a period of 3 years after it, Chrysalis exclaimed. I believe you yourself added that one, something about avoiding the Supreme Chancellor problem. Celestia grumbled bitterly. Okay, that one may have been a mistake. Don't you just love having a legal code carried over from unicorn supremacists and altered by 16 different overlapping duchies as well as 1,000 years of power-mad nobles? Chrysalis teased. I liked it more when I was the only one who knew all the old loopholes, Celestia muttered. So, we have reached an accord? Chrysalis offered. Celestia muttered curses under her breath. I guess. What matter of accommodations do your people require? Oh, not much. Just 30 fluid ounces of water per day, as well as a heaping helping of love, Chrysalis declared. Like... Celestia used her magic to create a glowing circle and a rod, which she moved in and out of the circle in a lewd manner. Chrysalis scoffed. By the First Mother, no! I meant literal feel-good mushy love. We are emotivores! Celestia sighed. Well, that's a relief, kinda. Now, then shall we begin planning where the construction of the new hive shall be? Chrysalis offered. New hive? Why, of course, we are changelings. We need dark, damp space to reside after all, Chrysalis replied. Celestia sighed, collapsing into her chair like a half-deflated beach toy. After this, I am so bringing back the monarchy. Chrysalis sighed, tapping her hoof against her chair impatiently. Before her were a trio of advisors the Queen had called to her private quarters in Canterlot Castle. Each one was the same as the last, smart but not too smart, strong but not too strong, and with a clipboard held before them. Love storage is going well, though we've found that most ponies find the process rather disconcerting, so we've taken to storing it away from prying eyes, remarked one of the identical changelings. To that end, we've begun to use the warehouses you acquired after your last meeting with the pony called Frothy Mug. Yes, I remember, Chrysalis exclaimed, waving a hoof at the male. Tell me something I don't know. That's pretty much it. Love collection and storage are all going according to plan, the changeling replied. Chrysalis sighed, turning to the next changeling in line. And let me guess, our efforts to ensure none of those pompous so-called nobles start anything is going well? The changeling nodded. The Blue Blood Bloc were considering introducing a bill that would sneakily classify changelings as animals, but was dealt with swiftly. Chrysalis blinked, sitting a little straighter in a chair. Well, that is interesting news. That foppish fool and his underlings are difficult to persuade. How did you manage to do so? The advisor glanced to his fellows before gulping. We, didn't. What do you mean you didn't? Who did then? Chrysalis demanded. Apparently Celestia heard about it as well and killed the bill before it could get anywhere, answered the changeling. That is interesting, Chrysalis admitted, turning to the last male in line. And you, how have our efforts to sway public opinion been going? Remarkably easy, the last advisor replied somewhat hesitantly. So much so that I wonder if we overestimated these ponies. Probably Celestia again, Chrysalis muttered. What is that mare's game? Regardless, that is everything, my queen, stated the changeling, unless you acquire anything more from us. Chrysalis shook her head. No, you may return to your duties. I must prepare for my meeting with the ponies' pathetic elected officials. Then we look forward to your victory, my queen, they announced in unison. Yes, Chrysalis muttered, sinking into a chair. As do I.
gather round, ye ponies bold, I've got a tale to tell of a war so brief, so gloriously dumb, it ended ere it fell. Queen Chrysalis came strutting in with ego twice her height. She slapped our princess on the face and then gave up the fight. Raise your mugs to the 5-second war. No blood was spilled, no settling score. She hit and quit with a legal twist, and 400,000 changelings made the housing list. She brought her crown, she brought her laws, she brought her ancient claws, declared that every bug she let it fought and earned applause. Each one struck themselves, she said, the rules are crystal clear. You owe us beds and mushy love and housing far and near. Raise your mugs to the queen who come with ancient scrolls and logic strong. No spears, no siege, just courtroom flair, and Celestia sighing in her gilded chair. She summoned guards who weren't our own. For 20 years they'd kept it known. They slapped themselves, the treaty stood. Equestria said, fine, we probably should. So raise your mugs to a war so short, to changeling tricks and royal retorts. The hive moved in, the law was tight, all 'cause one queen planned it right. So if you plan to strike a throne, beware the paperwork you own. For in this land of law and lore, even a slap can start a war.
Pony Fiction channel. Also available as a podcast on Spotify. And Izzy Moonbow is best pony, by the way. Fiction. Bro, hoof, comment, subscribe.